Hi, my name is Stephanie Spicer and I'm a Limey. I'm not a doctor or medical professional, so anything I say in this video shouldn't be taken as medical advice. I'm just a person with Lyme disease sharing what I've experienced and learned. If you're watching this video, you probably already know that you have Lyme disease, or at least strongly suspect it. If that's the case, you've already cleared the first hurdle towards getting better, and it may have been a long journey for you to get to this point. Lyme disease can be difficult to diagnose because it just has so many different symptoms, many of which are symptoms of other diseases as well. To make matters even more difficult, often doctors are working with outdated or faulty information about this illness. And even when they do test for it, the standard testing methods used often show false negatives. Let's discuss this. First of all, most Lyme patients don't remember ever being bitten by a tick, and of those who do, an even smaller number actually develop the classic erythema migrans or bull's eye rash, which is possibly the most unique of all the Lyme symptoms. The rash doesn't always manifest in a classic bull's eye form, and even when it does, it's often unrecognized and simply treated as dermatitis. Secondly, sometimes a patient will receive a diagnosis that turns out to be just a symptom of Lyme disease, only to find out years later that it was the Lyme that caused it. Diagnoses can be comforting. They take away the mystery of why strange things are happening in our bodies and help us to feel that we have some control over the situation. But if we're just treating a symptom, its actual cause can continue to run rampant and cause a plethora of new problems. Thirdly, Lyme often gets misdiagnosed as some other serious illness. In the years leading up to a diagnosis, patients may be told they have chronic fatigue syndrome, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, lupus, candidiasis, chronic mononucleosis, hypoglycemia, Alzheimer's, ALS, rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune diseases, heart disease, mental disorders like schizophrenia, OCD, ADD, bipolar disorder, Tourette syndrome, or hypochondria, chemical sensitivity, irritable bowel syndrome, thyroid problems, stress-related illness, or even just the flu or sinusitis. This is not to say that everyone who has these diseases in reality has Lyme disease, though some have hypothesized that some of them may be varying manifestations of Lyme. But whether that's true or not, we should be aware that misdiagnosis is a strong possibility. And I just want to interject one thing here before we move on to the next point. Many of the diseases in the list I just mentioned have no known cause, and therefore no real treatment besides symptom management. We are really lucky that we actually have the microbiology on Lyme. Knowing what causes a disease helps us to be able to treat it purposefully and intelligently. And finally, the standard testing methods for Lyme are inadequate and outdated. The CDC guidelines lay out a two-step process for Lyme testing. First, the ELISA, a test shown to have as low as 50% accuracy, must be administered. And if it comes out negative, as it often does even in Lyme-positive patients, no further steps must be taken. Only if the ELISA test comes out positive must a second test, the Western blot, be administered. This test is much more comprehensive, but unfortunately, many people who actually do have Lyme get screened out by the ELISA before ever taking the Western blot. Another issue that complicates testing is that immune response may be inactive or suppressed. So testing for antibodies too early or very late in the disease may produce false negatives. The immune system can enter a kind of stalemate with the disease if it's unable to defeat it. Incidentally, this is why many Lymies vacillate between feeling okay and feeling sick, as the immune system periodically puts up a fight before giving up and backing down again. The medical community is becoming more aware of the inadequacy of current Lyme tests and testing methodologies, and instances of promising new research do pop up from time to time, but unfortunately none of it has been officially approved and implemented, and so they tend to sink back into obscurity, and we remain stuck with the old paradigms for now. So, what can we do about this? I think the first question we should ask is, do I need to get tested? Remember that erythema migrans equals a positive diagnosis. No further testing is needed if you've had a bullseye rash. But even if you didn't, a clinical diagnosis, that is a diagnosis based on symptoms, is a good enough indication for many Lyme-literate medical doctors to go ahead with treatment. A third option is to simply go ahead with treatments and see how you respond. This, of course, should be done taking a careful risk analysis under the guidance of a Lyme-literate doctor. If you do decide to get tested, please make sure you understand how Lyme testing works and get highly specific, comprehensive tests that won't waste your time, money, and energy. I myself had a test panel done with IGeneX, one of the only labs in the country that does accurate testing for Lyme and its co-infections. My primary care physician read the results as positive. However, another doctor who looked at the same results later told me they were negative because my antibody levels were supposedly too low to indicate an ongoing infection. Nevertheless, I was getting worse and worse, so I decided to go with the first doctor's reading and initiate treatment. And I'm so glad I did, because I've gotten so much better.